What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. International defense experts, analysts, and politicians are here in Taiwan to discuss security issues threatening the Indo-Pacific. Rick Glauert reports.
Taiwan is hosting its annual Ketikalan Forum. It's an Indo-Pacific security conference that puts Taiwan and its concerns at the center of the conversation. Here in the capital Taipei, President Tsai Ing-wen is hosting speakers from Israel, Estonia, Japan, and India, all weighing in on the growing challenges facing this region. It comes at a time of heightened tension in the Indo-Pacific, with both North Korea and China threatening the delicate status quo. Taiwan and its neighbours are growing edgy over Chinese military aggression in the South China Sea and towards Taiwan, a country it claims as part of its territory. It's led to a build-up of military activity and unprecedented defence spending. The forum included speeches on cognitive warfare, cybersecurity, and how to protect supply chains.
日本周辺でも軍備増強が急速に進展しており、日本は戦後第二次世界大戦後最も厳しく複雑な安全保障環境のただ中にあります。
Taiwan says it does not want war with China, but that it is determined to defend itself.
Taiwan has been taking the necessary measure to upgrade our security capabilities. We have set up new facilities to advance our domestic development of naval vessels. We have taken steps to bolster and train our reserve forces. We have also made substantial investments to enhance our asymmetric defense capability. All these efforts are contributing to our move towards self-sufficiency in our national defense.
Under pressure from China, Taiwan is so often denied its voice on the world stage. This conference is an important opportunity for Taiwan to discuss its concerns with its regional and global partners. But it's also a display of unity in increasingly uncertain times. Scott Huang and Rick Glauert in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Meanwhile, Japan's defense network was hacked by Chinese cyber spies in late 2020. That's according to a report from the Washington Post. Citing unnamed senior U.S. officials, the report says the hackers breached military networks and were able to obtain information on defense plans and capabilities. One official described the attack as shockingly bad. It's reportedly one of the most damaging cyber breaches in Japan's history. For more on this, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to independent security analyst Nishimura Rintaro, based in Washington, D.C.
This report that we're seeing says that China was able to hack sensitive Japanese defense networks. How significant is that?
Well, it's very concerning, I think, because it's at least according to the reports, it's MOD's most sensitive database, which I would say is very concerning given Japan and China's relationship in the military aspect. It's clear that Japan is underwhelming in the cyber domain despite its forward-leaning efforts of late, and it kind of begs the question about how far-reaching it is. It just undermines trust in Japan as an ally and/or a security partner. For anyone that's watching these developments, it's concerning to be a partner of Japan and to realize that it's been hacked by China at its most core. And there's, obviously concerns of attacks during contingencies, which I guess for this audience would be like a Taiwan contingency. If Japan is paralyzed in its state and social functions, like how effective can it be in helping Taiwan?
A lot of the times we're talking about more traditional aspects of warfare, things like tanks and missiles and fighter jets. But how significant is cyber attacks and cybersecurity in the sense of, are we going to see more of this from China against allies like the United States or Japan?
Hybrid warfare is now very commonplace. It's not just about tanks and missiles now. It's about who can dominate cyberspace and all these other new domains that are emerging. And just to give you some numbers, one study showed that Japan was on the receiving end of 900 cyber attacks per week last year. That was a 38% increase from 2021, which again shows just how prevalent the issue is becoming. And in 2021, Japan's cybersecurity strategy also mentioned for the first time that China is allegedly using state-backed hacking activities to target dual-use technologies. It's becoming a prevalent issue, and it goes beyond the counter-strike capabilities or the US-Japan interoperability issues. I think cyber is also one of those areas that the alliance will have to keep in mind going forward.
And going forward, how can the United States, Japan, and other countries in the region defend against cyber attacks from China?
I think the idea now, at least, is that it's not just about defending, it's also about proactively identifying these vulnerabilities. For example, and this is just a Japanese example, but the government is looking at introducing this thing called active cyber defense, which is eliminating in advance the possibility of serious cyber attacks. In one example, it would be things like reviews of supply chain vulnerabilities, looking at not just individual firms' vulnerabilities to cyber attacks, but doing that across the supply chain. I think that's something that not just Japan, but other countries would also need to do.
That was independent defense analyst Nishimura Rintaro speaking to our reporter Jaime Okan. And that wasn't the only major hack to come to light recently. North Korean hackers had breached a Russian missile developer, and that's according to a report from Reuters. Citing data obtained by a U.S. cybersecurity firm, the report says North Korea hacked into Russian hypersonic missile developer NPO MASH in late 2021. Those hackers were reportedly tied to North Korea's government. They breached private emails and penetrated the company's network. The report comes as North Korea pushes to further develop its ballistic missile program. Back in Taiwan, rescue efforts are wrapping up in central and southeast parts of the country after Typhoon Kanun caused torrential rains and massive landslides. Royal Hughes reports.
Just days after Typhoon Kanun brushed Taiwan, repairs are underway in Nantou, central Taiwan, where torrential rains caused massive landslides and cracked roads. In southern Taiwan's port city of Kaohsiung, road damage has stranded some 400 people in 3 indigenous villages.
由于这个地质是变质砂岩的地层，所以这巨石非常坚硬，难以打除。公务段也在增加工作面，希望可以再调派机具进来协助。
Back in Nantou, helicopters have been commissioned to bring supplies to the 85 people stranded in Lushan. Their electricity was cut off and they are running out of food and water. The Nantou Fire Bureau is working to evacuate them.
我们本来要架绳索游龙，大家考虑那个架设点的问题是不是安全，这个都在我们考虑之内，或者用从后山高绕的方式从另外一个区域下来。
The storm caused over $3 million worth of damage. Farmlands were washed away and agriculture destroyed. There is still a lot to clean up after the storm. Local authorities are now focusing on rebuilding the roads and bringing those still trapped to safety. Howard Jung, Bing Wang, and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President Joe Biden has implemented the first section of a trade agreement between the U.S. and Taiwan. This allows the two countries to begin tackling several problems under the U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade. Those issues include customs procedures, regulatory practices, and small to medium-sized businesses. Biden also raised what he called constitutional concerns about parts of the agreement. He said that sections that violate the U.S. president's authority to negotiate with a foreign partner would be treated as non-binding. Taiwan's top trade negotiator met with the deputy U.S. trade representative last week to discuss the next phase of the agreement. Taiwan is facing a nursing shortage as a steady stream of caregivers are quitting their profession. Nurses' unions say that without higher pay to stem the flow, the medical system could find itself in serious trouble. John Van Trieste reports.
Taiwan's nurses are heading for the exits, and few others want to take their place. Even before COVID-19 appeared, nurses in Taiwan already had to deal with long hours and low pay. But the stress of 2 years on the front lines of a pandemic has led many to walk away from the profession. Lawmaker Chen Jingming, once a nurse herself, conducted a survey to see how bad the problem is. She found that even those just finishing nursing school are reconsidering their careers. Around 9,000 graduate each year, but only around 4,000 to 5,000 actually go on to become nurses. And with around 5,000 nurses quitting on an annual basis, the profession is just barely holding on. As a result, nursing schools are also struggling to stay afloat.
很多专科学校会觉得说，我们都不知道有没有得生存啊，那都不敢聘老师，或者不敢聘高阶师资。
The health ministry says it wants hospitals to improve conditions, and it says it will look at offering monetary rewards as an incentive to stay in nursing. But nurses' unions say unless pay improves, Taiwan's nursing shortage is only set to get worse. Eason Pan and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Mayors responsible for almost 9 million people across the country are meeting in Taipei to discuss the future of Taiwan cities. Making traffic safer is at the top of their agenda. Stash Butler reports.
Can Taiwan rebuild its cities so no one dies on the road? That's the debate here in Taipei, where mayors from 3 of Taiwan's biggest cities and 2 county chiefs have gathered to discuss the future of Taiwan's built infrastructure. Traffic is a hot issue here ever since CNN published an article with a headline that described Taiwan as a living hell for pedestrians. Civic society and opposition figures have been pushing for change. And they point to the statistics. Taiwan's traffic death rate is on a par with the US. It's double South Korea's and 5 times higher than Japan's. Sweden, meanwhile, has one of the lowest traffic death rates in the world. And that's partly thanks to their Vision Zero plan, which aims for no one to die on the road. To the 2 Swedish engineers who spoke at the forum, a planner's responsibility to road users, to protect those road users, is like that of a doctor with their patients.
If you're a medical doctor or a person that treats another person and that person's life is in your hands, you are obliged to use the resources you have at hand to use, well, to do as good as you can to save that person's life.
Campaigners say Taiwan still has a long way to go.
我们在过马路的时候，常常就是在国外跟在台湾的那个感受是差很多的。好像在台湾的驾驶是视行人为无物，他有眼睛，可是他看不到行人。
But not everyone is on board with the shift to tougher traffic rules. Taiwan's taxi drivers have been protesting outside the transport ministry, saying that they're being unfairly punished. But activists, meanwhile, hope that forums like this can bring about lasting change, and with an election less than 6 months away, show Taiwan's politicians that pedestrian safety is a vote-winning issue. Yu Chen Lai, Justin Wu, and Stash Butler in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Tenant groups here in Taiwan say landlords are taking advantage of a government program for renters, raising questions about how effective such efforts are at making housing more accessible. Jeremy Olivier has more.
What was meant as a boost for people who rent in Taiwan might not be the good news they'd hoped for. In July, the government rolled out nearly $1 billion in new rental subsidies, part of a program to make housing more affordable. But civic groups say the program has some major problems. They say in the past, many landlords would refuse to let their tenants apply for the subsidies because they'd be forced to report and pay taxes on their rental properties. And if their tenants went ahead and applied anyway, they would raise their rent in response. Groups now say that in addition to the subsidies, the system should also include penalties for uncooperative landlords.
其实不是反对租金补贴，要讲到萝卜跟棒子啦。对啊，因为我们现在都只给萝卜嘛，然后我们就觉得针对租屋这个市场这个问题，我觉得一定要有一个策略来去解决。
Taiwan's housing prices have skyrocketed in recent years. Buying a home has become unthinkable for most young people. But rental prices have also risen steadily over the past decade. The government's rent index, which tracks the cost of renting property in Taiwan, hit a record high in June this year. It's a problem with no easy solution.
你收入很低，所以我不得不租屋。租屋的话，然后政府在用一个贴补式的，但是其实只是在治标而已，那没有办法去真正的去治本。
The government says it's dedicated to solving Taiwan's housing problems. On top of subsidies, it's also creating more social housing. It aims to make over 200,000 units available by next year. But with landlords taking advantage of some programs, questions remain over how much these efforts can help. John Su and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
A runaway pet alligator has been caught in New Taipei City. This spectacled caiman escaped its home when recent heavy rains caused its enclosure to overflow. It is legal to keep alligators as pets here in Taiwan, even though they can grow up to be nearly 2 meters long. The owner of this gator could be fined up to $500 for negligence. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, hang 10 with these puppers taking part in the World Dog Surfing Championships in California. I'm Eric Gao. Take care and see you next time.